You actually talked about that in next episode.
Let me start that just section.
Yeah.
Just gonna do that. So I Yay, you're here. Welcome to How to Be a Grown Up with CK and GK. Let's get started. All right. I'm Caitlin, and welcome to How to Be a Grown Up. This is the show that is a how-to show that gives you advice on being a grown up. And today it's going to be all the insights into the ADHD mind regarding hobbies. With me today, filling in for Jenny as she has a robot move her knee, is pod friend and author of Roots in Ink, Ariella Monti.
Hi.
She is my glitter-covered library wizard. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the library episode because you'll know what I mean. Anyway, Jen, we love you. We're so glad you're healing now. The robot thing is weird. Not going to lie. There's a robot moving your knee, and that's very strange, but it's cool. It's just weird. Did you know that was a thing?
I did not.
It it like moves her knee so that it bends like an inch and then goes. She sent me a video. It does not look like it's fun, especially for someone who just had knee surgery, but it is what it is. It's cool,
but it's a little weird.
I didn't know it was a thing. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to support Jenny in her recovery, feel free to send me a text using the link in the show notes, or you can send me a message through our website on the Contact Us page. Today, we're continuing our Spring into Self-Care series with a discussion about hobbies. This is dangerous territory for us ADHDers, but that's okay because hobbies are self-care and it's a way for ADHDers to get a dopamine.
Absolutely. This is like our bread and butter right here.
Oh, 100%. Give me all the random hobbies. Let me buy all the stuff for them. No, let me not. Let me go to the library and see what I can borrow, or go to a buy nothing group and do it that way. And then see if I actually am really into it. Anyway, I really did get into crocheting. I really do like it. It feels like more than just the usual 3-day ADHD hyperfixation where I spend all the money and then don't do it. So I'm glad we're talking about this because this is something I need to be intentional about making time for myself. So anyway, let's talk about hobbies for self-care and why you need to either get a hobby or do more than just say I'll get to it when I can. You need to actually make it be a part of your self-care routine and make it a habit.
Right. So this is going to be more of me just sort of gently poking your listeners to get a hobby and commit to it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And it doesn't have to be, a big long commitment or anything like that. But this is just my little gentle poking. So if we want to look at the scientific reasons why we all need some kind of hobbies, there was a 2023 observational study published in Nature Medicine, and this study included 93,000 people across 16 countries. They were all 65 years and older. And here's the important thing. They all had long-standing mental or physical health conditions. These are like our people, These are like our people, okay? These are not like neurotypical, super healthy people. Like these are, these are
average Joes. That's what they are.
Yeah. And they were followed for between 4 and 8 years. And the people who had hobbies reported better health, more happiness, fewer symptoms of depression, and higher life satisfaction.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I love that. Okay.
Now, because it's an observational study, it's kind of like one of those things like the hobbies didn't cause these things.
Sure.
But it's more of like a correlation versus causation type of thing. But hobbies involve the things that we already know are linked to good mental health and well-being, which is creativity, sensory engagement, self-expression, relaxation, cognitive stimulation. And then on top of that, if you are doing these hobbies with other people, it keeps you socially connected, and that helps reduce loneliness and isolation.
Okay.
Yeah, so the hobbies themselves, it has all the things kind of baked into it that we already know have these benefits like long term.
Sure.
So that's for your health is why, what's the word? To get through the dumpster fire that is life.
In
In
2025.
2025, make time for a little bit of hobbies, for some hobbies.
I think this is a really important aspect of this because when we talked about self-care, we were talking about the benefit to your mental health, the benefit to the reset, the benefit to the ability to stay calm in moments of crisis, right? And for a lot of people, the hobby is like the time to kind of disassociate from everything else, right? It's like it's a mental clarity piece, which is so important to that mental health, happiness space. It's really interesting to think of this angle as a piece of self-care because it does provide that activity without the thinking, without the or the thinking about something completely different. And for the people who are like, I don't know what my self-care is, it's like it's going back to that reframing of like, well, what are the things that you love that make you feel happy?
Exactly.
Well, if doing puzzles is one of the things that you love makes you feel happy, then that should be and it's a hobby of yours, and consider it self-care.
Exactly.
And then use that as it's just a really interesting idea, and the idea like that it's so beneficial to your overall health is kind of amazing.
Absolutely,
honestly.
because it really is so simple in a lot of ways. I
Right.
think we've
Right.
overcomplicated even hobbies, especially us ADHDers. We feel like we have to do our hobbies like 100% perfect. We have to do it just the right way, and that is not at all the case. Like, you're still going to get all of these benefits by just taking it in little bits and chunks.
You're right about the perfectionism piece. Like Jenny and I were on the phone the other night, and she goes, "So I hate to tell you this, but you might be a little bit of a perfectionist." And I was like, "Okay, pot meat kettle, like shut up." But also, she's not
Right.
wrong, right? And that's especially for people who do have some perfectionist tendencies in them. If it's not easy right away, they tend to think that it's something they shouldn't keep
Right.
doing. But if it's not easy right away and you enjoy it anyway, then why not? Or you're never going to get good at it, then why not, keep it going? I think that's part of why ADHDers also don't necessarily stick with hobbies.
Oh, totally.
I don't know about you, but I think we tend to be a little bit of a jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing where I can pretty much do a little bit of everything decent,
right,
if not above average, right? But then I can't escalate it past that because I don't keep practicing, and so when I get frustrated with myself. So there is this moment of me needing to take a step back and going, okay, but this is something that I did because I thought it was fun. It gave me a dopamine hit when I first started doing it. Why am I putting this much pressure on myself to get better at it? This is literally just for fun. This is literally just for mental clarity. I don't need to sell it, which I'm sure we're going to get to
totally.
bit. But anyway,
So
okay. I love hobby groups too. This is cool. All right,
so
keep it going. I'm excited.
There's a big joke that like once you get into your 30s, you start picking up all these like grandma hobbies like crocheting and cross stitching
100%.
and like bird watching and all that
puzzles.
Stuff. Yes. When we're in our 20s, we're like, oh, why does my grandmother like to do puzzles? And then we turn like 32 and it's like, oh, look at this new puzzle I got,
I can make bread. Like, it's just the most and that happened a lot during the pandemic too, right? Like, people were like, I picked up crocheting and now I'm so happy. And you're like, well, I obviously need to do something because, yes, I love the old lady hobbies. Give them all to me. Here for it.
And the thing with hobbies, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying about the perfectionism, is that how involved you are into these hobbies or these interests are just, they're going to be dependent on your season of life and what you have going on. It is a lot easier to have a hobby when your kids are 12 than when they are 12 weeks.
Preach.
Our boys are the same age, and so they're about 8.5, and it's a lot easier to have hobbies now than when they were, toddling around trying to off themselves, in one way or another.
I was going to say, like, I was going to finish that sentence the exact
Right.
same way you did, like trying to find ways to electrocute
Exactly.
themselves and or find random pills on the floor.
Right. So don't get sucked into this perfectionist mindset that you have to dedicate hours a week to do this hobby. It's better to do it infrequently and imperfectly than to not do it at all. One of my examples from my personal life is how I got back into reading when I got back into reading when I was nap trapped, because my kid would only nap for longer than 20 minutes if he was on my chest.
Oh.
So for 1 to 2 hours, I was stuck in a chair. And the day that I decided, instead of scrolling TikTok, no, TikTok didn't exist back then. Instead of scrolling Facebook.
Right.
Yeah.
Facebook.
Instead of scrolling Facebook, I could read on my Kindle. And that is how I started reading again. And, with time, you start to have those pockets of time become bigger and bigger. So don't kind of get stuck in that, well, I can't have a hobby because I don't have any free time. And it's like, yeah, you might not have any free time. Like,
right,
you might not. But it's not always going to be like that. So if, like, that's the way your life is right now, it's okay. The people in this study were 65.
Right. They had time.
Yeah.
They're all retired.
Exactly.
They don't have kids to monitor. Yeah.
Exactly. So if the only time you can read or crochet or color is when you're nap trapped or stuck in the car or on your lunch break, and it takes you 3 months to finish a book or a project, that's okay. Do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, I'm going to go back to a couple of things we mentioned in the episode about self-care when we introduced this is, one, I'm hopeful that you have a partner in your life, regardless of the season of your life that you're in, whether it's the 12-week-old or the 12-year-old. I hope that you have a partner in your life who sees the value of that hobby for you and provides you with the escape time that you need in order to do it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, should you be fortunate enough to have that partner, which, by the way, you deserve to have that partner. This should be a non-negotiable. But should you have that partner in your life or that person in your life, it could even be a mom friend who acts as a body double, hint, hint, Ariella, ask them for that time.
Right.
Say, I miss reading. Can I swap you this activity for me to read 30 minutes? And see what happens. There's a really good chance that that person who you've expressed this to will understand why you need it and give it to you. I do like the idea for the people who are nap trapped and or up in the middle of the night nursing, use that time to find the mental escape that you need, because that's important. And if you're not a person who gets nap trapped and you're incredibly busy, again, advocate for that time.
Absolutely. Definitely.
So what if you're not sure what your hobbies are?
So if you're not sure what your hobbies are, I would like it to be hobby curious.
Ooh, that's a very fancy word. It feels borrowed from a genre of something. I like that. Hobby curious.
Yes. Be hobby curious. So if there are things that you're interested in, you can, as we said in previous episodes, check your library for introductory classes. These are usually free or very low cost, and some will happen on a consistent basis. So every couple of months, there might be like an intro to crocheting class. There might be an intro to something else. There might be a book club. All of these are opportunities to kind of test out a hobby without going like full commitment on it. And you're going to be with people who are experienced and already really enjoy it. So they can give you, all the little tips and all the little tricks. And that is also where that social aspect comes in.
If you are someone who does not have the ability to get to the library and or access these free classes and you have an internet connection, YouTube is a fabulous resource for teaching you just about anything. And if you want to be like the kids these days, the Gen Zers and the Gen Alphas, they are increasingly turning to TikTok to learn new things.
Yes.
There is so much you can learn online. So if the library is not an option, you can't get access to it. You literally don't have the time to drive 10 minutes to the library because then you have to turn right back around and come back. Please use the internet to provide this introductory lesson for trying a new hobby.
Absolutely. And YouTube, TikTok, they're all real, especially if you're a visual person, it's a really great way
absolutely.
to kind of learn these things.
Yeah.
For supplies, you can, again, check your library, see if they have a library of things and if they might have those things that you can borrow. Or you can thrift it. You can check your local Buy Nothing group. You can see if you can buy them used on Facebook Marketplace or something. You can borrow them from a friend. You know, if you want to try crocheting, like I've got a ton of yarn that I can pass on to somebody who wants to learn how to crochet.
Right. And for those of you who are nap trapped or new moms or something, like can't get out of the house for whatever reason, I have seen, it's not common, but I have seen on Buy Nothing groups people who say like, this is something I really need, but I literally cannot leave my house. I'm bedridden or I'm whatever. And there are people who are kind enough who will bring you these things. It is amazing to see. So I'm not saying you don't have, and I'm not saying there's no excuses. I'm saying that there are ways around some of these difficulties that you might be experiencing. So definitely agree with the supply angle for sure.
Definitely. One way to get into a new hobby is doing it with your kids. So doing these things with your kids through like a parent and me class allows you to explore the hobby in a super introductory way. Like literally, like they're talking to you like a 5-year-old. And you can learn these little basics before you commit to something on a more adult level.
I love that. That was not something I had even thought of. I'm about to go see what I can do with my son because that does so many things. One, you're providing a new skill, right? Another outlet. We are big into encouraging our child to do sports because we want him to listen to other people and learn to work with others. Some kids are just not into that. So this is a great way to address that. We talked about in the last episode, you're also doing that, bringing your kids in on the concept of self-care, right? Like you're teaching them, this is something that we do to enjoy ourselves. It's for pure enjoyment. It's for nothing else. And it makes me feel better. Does it make you feel better? Here's why it makes you feel better, because you're just finding time to enjoy yourself. And like, think about the value of the connection of that time, right? I'm very intentional about any time that I spend one-on-one with my son. I label it and I will say, this is Mommy and Sam's special time. That's all it's called. It's not called anything fancy. It's just, this is Mommy and Sam's special time. It could be us going to the grocery store together, but it's something that he and I do together, just us. And it's for whatever reason, and it's not, I'm sure that there's science behind it. And I'm sure every child psychologist and parenting coach in the world is gonna, if they hear this, they're gonna scream at me like, duh. But it makes the relationship better to the point where I don't have the same difficulties with him. We don't get into as many fights because we've had the Mommy and Sammy special time, right? Like it's a really interesting idea. I love this idea of getting into a hobby with your kids.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
What a great idea.
Yeah. This is how I got into pottery, because my son wanted to take a pottery class, and the community center that I work at has an amazing pottery program for adults and children. And I also know the pottery teacher because I work there. And she does these extremely popular family clay time classes on Saturday mornings. So it's a child and they're adults, and there's a project that they work on, and they work on it together, and you learn the basics of pottery. And initially, my son was going with my husband because I am not an artist. I suck at art.
I'm going to stop you right there. One, don't talk about my friend like that. Two, your form of art is different from what you're defining art as. You are a writer. That is
true.
art.
That
Just
is true.
going
That
to
is
bring
true.
you back.
Yes.
Now, you might not feel as though you are gifted in a traditional sense of art. That's fair.
Right. That is true. Yes. Yes.
All right.
So he started going with my husband, and he loved it, really enjoyed it. And then at some point he was like, I want you to take a class with me. And I did, kind of anticipating that it was going to be a disaster, but it wasn't. And so I had a lot of fun, and I started going to more classes with him. And then finally I decided to just do it on my own and take the adult classes. And now pottery is a hobby that I do frequently. Now, it's easier for me because I work at a place that has an accessible pottery program, because pottery is an expensive hobby. So it's accessible to me in a way that it might not be accessible to other people. But the point is that, like, my son still takes pottery. He still goes to pottery once a week. Now he's doing it on his own.
If you're doing it as a class, think about what that means. Yes, you have to get there. You could view it as a burden. But again, this is scheduled self-care. You've put it into your calendar and you are going. There is not, especially if you paid for the class. If you paid for the class, that's when you really are like, okay, I need to go. Right? There's value in getting the return on what you did. So that's a really interesting piece. It's making it's not just finding the time, it's that you've made the time. It's part of your calendar. It's something that you do every Saturday morning or whatever it may be. That's another valuable piece of using an outside resource to develop these hobbies.
Yes.
It forces you to put it on your calendar and do it.
Yeah. And then there's the accountability piece of it. You know, like, you start to make friends in these classes, and then it's like, oh, well, where's Ariella? How come she hasn't been in class? Or what's going on with her?
Yeah.
This is the only place that you might talk to a person. And, you know, when you left class, they were telling you all about, like, the drama with their neighbor. And, like, you want to find out what happened with the neighbor, you know, like.
I live for those conversations. So the social aspect of that, so you may get all the tea. And I'm someone who, again, I live for those conversations. They're my favorite. There's no such thing as TMI, and there's no such thing as gossip for me, because I want to hear all of it. So if that's a reason to go back to class, I'm going.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I am a chismosa to the max. Like, tell me everything. I love it. Okay. All right. So you can use your kids to be social, to start a hobby. You can use the time, the scheduled block time, to be a chismosa and have scheduled self-care. What else can you do to learn more about these hobbies and get yourself started?
So Facebook and Discord, just if there's a thing that you want to learn about, just join these groups or these servers and just lurk for a while. Look at the conversations, what people are talking about, and then eventually start, you know, asking questions. Sometimes these groups have outings or meetups, and you can learn more about it. I signed up. I ended up not going, I think because I was sick or my son was sick. It was a birding meetup through the Audubon Society, like in Raleigh.
Cool.
And now I can't tell you how many emails I get from Meetup about birding opportunities. So
yeah,
these are other ways that you can learn without committing to it. And then once you are ready to really dive into the hobby or the interest, you can start asking questions, or you can meet up with these people if they have these kinds of outings. And even if you're not ready to kind of dive into the hobby, like, you could still hang out with these people and talk to these people and get to know these people, especially if they're in your community and you just have a common interest.
Right. You might not be doing the activity, but you're at least interested enough in the activity to go and engage with
Right.
the
Like, maybe you don't have time in your life to grow a vegetable garden, but you are interested in gardening. If it's a group that's going to kick you out because you don't have a physical garden, like they're a bunch of jerks and you shouldn't be hanging out with them anyway. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it doesn't matter what your involvement is. It's just a way that you can kind of start to expand on the interest and maybe socialize a little bit.
Yeah. I found that people who are don't get an ADHD or started talking about a hobby that they love, because you'll never hear the end of it. But I find that people who are interested in a hobby and are actually participating love to share why they like it and would love to show you more about it, even if you're not necessarily engaging with it.
Right.
I also don't want to rule out Reddit as a great option for
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
Reddit has infinite amount of information and an infinite amount of questions and answers on Reddit that are about an infinite amount of hobbies.
Yep.
So that's a great place to lurk.
Yes.
And ask questions. People will absolutely engage with you on Reddit. I mean, I love Reddit. I tend to go down rabbit holes. It's kind of like TikTok for me, where like I'll go in spurts because I really love it and I'll spend too much time there instead of crocheting on Reddit. Can Reddit be a hobby? I think it can. Anyway, I'm reading, so I think that should count. But that's a great place to go to. So yes, if you hate Facebook and you don't have Discord and if you're like me and you're like, if there's one more social channel that I have to keep up with, I will lose my ever loving mind. Reddit might be the place to go, because you can really go in and out without getting too involved in too many notifications.
Totally.
So
like 90% of the time, if I have a question and I ask the internet, like my answer is going to be in Reddit.
Pop up.
Yeah, definitely.
Reddit pop up. There's a really good chance that if you're trying a new hobby and you have a question about something, the answer will exist there.
Yes,
so that's a great place
definitely.
to go. Okay, what about, we talked about time. Like we talked about making sure you have dedicated space in your life to set aside every week, every day, every 2 weeks, put it on your calendar, sign up for a class if you must, because if you don't block off the time, you'll blow it off. And we talked about the accountability piece of that. What about space for your hobby in your house?
If you have the space, and now I am very understanding to the lack of space. I have a very, very small house, and it has no garage. It has really crappy closets, and our shed is my husband's office. So
I get it. I'm similar.
Right. Yep. So, but if you can carve out some physical space in your house for this hobby, and that's where you go to do that hobby and not kind of other stuff, then it's easier to sort of an easier way to focus on it. Like we were talking about mindfulness, and being able to focus on your hobby sometimes also means that you have to be in a place where your hobby is the focus. And that doesn't mean it has to be a whole room. Like the dining room in our house it's like a catch-all room. We used to call it the room of requirement because
that's our guest room.
Yeah, it is like that's our drop zone for all of our bags and backpacks. It's where everything lives. But now I have a small square table, like one of those plastic folding tables, in there, and that is my dedicated space. It's where I do my sewing. It's where I do any hobby where I need a little bit of space.
This kind of reminds me of when people tell you to work on your sleep habits. What do they tell you to do? They say that the bed is only for sleeping, right? So that you train your body to understand that this is the space where I sleep. I don't do things that keep me awake because I've told my body now it's okay to be awake in this space.
Yep.
It's kind of like that, where you have this dedicated space where you do your hobby. And so your body knows when I'm in this space, my brain is going to shut off on all the other things and I'm going to fixate on this one thing that's in front of me for my enjoyment.
Yes.
Right? It's like the sanctioned space of the hobby self-care area. Like that was a dumb way to say that. But what I'm saying is I'm gonna edit that part out. now that when you have that dedicated space, not only does everyone in the house know that's your space for your hobby. So when you're sitting there, leave me alone, I'm doing my hobby. But also your body, your brain subconsciously understands this is where I do the thing that I enjoy.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So I think I'm gonna be able to summarize this pretty well here. One, science says you need a hobby. It's good for your mental health.
Yep.
Two, if you're not sure what they are, again, I'm going to go back to my definition of self-care, which is find the things that make you happy and make you feel like yourself. Those are your hobbies. There's a really good chance. Otherwise, be hobby curious. Consider old lady hobbies. Look into something that you can do with your children. Do a search online and see what Reddit gives you in terms of options for that hobby and other free resources that you can look into. Make space for your hobby, both in terms of the physical area around you and on your calendar, in order to use hobbies as your self-care.
Yeah.
Okay. What other thoughts do you have about this before we wrap this up?
So my two big things that are kind of related, and we talked about this earlier when we talked about perfection, but be bad at it. Allow yourself to not be good at this hobby, especially right out the gate. Now, if it's frustrating the hell out of you, like, it's not for you. This is one of those things where you're bad at it, but you're enjoying learning.
Yeah.
And so just be okay. And I know this is hard and it has taken, lots of therapy and growth to get to this place, but like, be okay with just not being good at this thing and just enjoy it because you enjoy it. That said, if you do get really good at it, do not make this your side hustle. Your hobby does not have to be monetized, and your hobby should not become monetized. If it's something that you love enough that you're like, hey, like I think I want to do this for a living, like that is fine. That is totally cool, but then it's no longer your hobby. It's your job. And I can tell you this because writing is my job. It is not my hobby. Pottery is my hobby. Writing is my job. And it's a completely different mindset when you take your hobby and start monetizing it. So, for the love of everything,
the love of that hobby.
Yes, do not make this I beg of you, do not make this a side hustle.
Yeah, I think if you have a natural talent for something and and people are like, I would love to buy that from you, and then you can turn it into a job and you want to do that, that is completely different from saying, I'm going to become really good at crochet so that I can sell it. That's the mentalities there are very different. So I think that's the argument here.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And you need a hobby to give you a break from your job, and having that hobby is going to allow you to be better at that job. So writing is a creative job. I have creative hobbies that are not related to my writing that work a completely different muscle in my brain, different physical muscles in my hands than writing, because being creative in a completely different way helps me be creative in my writing job.
Yeah. You aren't starting a hobby to make money. You're starting a hobby to give yourself enjoyment. Don't start a hobby with the intent to make it your side hustle. Start a hobby with the intent to make it something that you enjoy as a form of self-care. If you want to monetize your hobby, fine, but understand it's no longer a hobby for you. It is a very enjoyable job.
Right.
But with jobs come pressure, and just keep that in mind as you go about this. Yeah. Okay. So I love that. Writing is my job. Pottery is my hobby. For me, it's also writing is my job. Very different style of writing. Writing is my job. Podcasting is my hobby. So is crocheting, and so is doing a puzzle and sleep. Those are all my
Yeah.
forms of self-care. All right. Let's take a quick break. Thank you for that. I love that spin on the idea of self-care, and we'll be right back. For links to resources mentioned in this episode, head on over to ckandgkpodcast.com/blog to find everything you need. And be sure to follow us on social media. Head over to your favorite social media network and find us at CK&GK Podcast. And now, back to the show. Okay, we are back. So, do you have obsessions besides pottery?
I do. So,
Okay.
my obsession lately has been using this website called democracy.io to harass my Congress people and senators.
Yes. Okay, state reps only, or
No, this is
like local and all.
this
Like
is
all
so
of them?
this is it's just federal. Unfortunately
Oh,
it's
okay.
just federal. I wish it had like a local bent to it, but it's just federal. So basically what
Okay.
it does is it's like the 5 calls app, but it's for
Yes.
email. So
Ooh,
right.
okay.
So what you do is you put in your address and it brings up your 2 senators and your representative, and you can choose if you want to send an email to one of them, all 3 of them, to whatever. And then it will populate kind of everything for you, so you can just send out, like I send it to like all 3 regardless of like what it is.
Sure, yeah, who cares? Yeah.
Right. And then I write my email, and then it gets sent out to all 3 of my representatives. So I've written one email and it gets sent to 3 different
That's great.
representatives. I could not tell you what the tech behind it is, but I do know from the emails that I have received from these representatives that they are getting them.
Good.
I would recommend that if you use this app, maybe put at the bottom that you are using the app to send the email, because the first one I got back, I think one of my senators was going to disregard it because it was a third party engagement app, and they weren't going to take it very seriously,
Right.
which is kind
Not
of
okay.
not okay. It would be if they weren't going to pay attention to those, could potentially violate a Supreme Court ruling, which I very politely pointed out in my follow-up email. But since then, at the bottom, after I sign my name, I do say, I'm sending this email to my representatives using the democracy.io engagement platform.
Okay, that's good to know. An easy way to get involved without pressure or anxiety, but still getting your messaging across. I like that. That's a good obsession to have, I think.
Yes.
Mine is a way for me to get out all of the anger that I am feeling these days. When I was teaching, I used to do this workout. It's a boxing workout, and I'm not going to name the workout or the trainer because I don't want to get into that, and I'm not sponsored.
Okay.
But it does boxing 3 days a week, and then the other 2 days are lifting days, and it's become muscle memory for me. I used to do the workout, again, like I said, all the time. It's like a 6-week program. It teaches you everything you need to know from start to finish, like what the punches are. And it's not kickboxing. It's a different thing. It's like standard traditional Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali style boxing, right? It is so fun. If you are looking to make yourself feel cool, do this workout. You will feel so, I don't swear on this show, so I'm not gonna say it. You will feel like as the way my son would put it, a bad A if you do this. Okay. It is the most empowering workout. Like I am very much a bad A when I am doing this. It feels so empowering. Highly recommend a boxing workout if you haven't tried it yet. It's really fun. That's my obsession right now.
I love that. That's amazing.
Okay, what about gems? Oh my God.
This is the wildest story.
I'm just now reading what you have on the show notes. I'm dying.
because
My goodness.
Yeah. Okay. So I will not repeat what I put. I put that in the show notes just for you to make you laugh.
Inappropriate language. It's not for moms.
It's an accurate word to describe a rooster, but it's an impolite word in other uses.
If you if you are a mom, you know the word, and especially if you have boys, you know the word.
Yeah.
However, you might be listening to this in the car with your children, in which case we won't say it.
Right. Or if you read a lot of romance, you read it often.
What sound does a rooster make? Cock-a-doodle-doo. Okay, now we know what the word is. Yay! Right. Okay, bye.
So,
so tell me about this gem. I'm.
This is freaking wild. Okay, so background: we are a chicken raisin family. We have had hens.
I'm sorry. I'm such a city girl. Like, the idea that there's, like, I know people in this city have chickens. Like, it's so, I grew up in San Francisco, like, and then Denver, like, oh, God.
I grew up in a middle-class suburb on Long Island. I mean, I get it.
Like,
but now I live in a rural suburb in North Carolina. So we have had chickens, a couple of different flocks of chickens for maybe like 10 years or so now. We have never had roosters. But I take it back. We had one rooster and he became lunch for a hawk. So that was very short-lived. So we've always had hens. Now, because I live in North Carolina, when kids are learning the life cycle in elementary school, they use chickens as the example. So he asks me for eggs because he wants to like go in a dark room and like hold a flashlight up to it to see if you can like see the little chicken side. Yeah. And I was like, well, we don't have a rooster, so we are not going to have any fertilized eggs. And he's like, well, can you get fertilized eggs? And I was like, actually, I can get fertilized eggs. I got them from a friend of mine, and who was thrilled to give them to me. And now these, yes, are fertilized eggs, but they were fresh, so they have not been sat on for a while. So it was very unlikely that there was going to be a chicken in them anyway. But I bring them home. And I'm like, hey, look, I got your eggs. And then I hear the rest of his plan, which was to hatch these fertilized eggs.
Oh, I'm shocked you didn't know that was coming, because I knew exactly where this was going.
No. So he and my husband and I were like, oh no, we're not going to hatch these for several reasons. One, we need an incubator. We don't have an incubator. Or we have to put these under one of our chickens, and then that's a whole thing. But the main reason is that I had 6 eggs, and we could not risk hatching 6 roosters.
Yeah.
Because for people who don't know, you can only have 1 rooster per 10 hens. Otherwise it gets... So we had to explain this to my kid. And he got a whole lesson in chicken dynamics. But then he was like, well, we should get a rooster. And me and my husband were like, okay, well, we had one, and stuff happens. And we don't want a rooster because then we have to constantly get the eggs, and we have to make sure that we don't end up with more little chicks because, yes, they're adorable, but like we don't want that sort of responsibility.
Right.
And he was like, oh, okay. And then the next freaking morning, there is a rooster in my backyard. We have no idea.
Life.
My kid asked for a rooster, and the universe was like, bet.
And I just won $1 billion.
Right. Why? Yeah. Like, why couldn't it be something like that? So this rooster, we don't know where it came from. He's fairly docile, but he just kind of made himself at home
Oh no.
with our 3 girls, and now we have a rooster.
And you're gonna have to like do the thing with the eggs that you didn't want to have to do.
Yes, yeah. His name is Steve Rogers. Because
Why would it be? Because Winter Soldier is your comfort movie.
No, because my hens are Hennifer Walters, which is She-Hulk, Yelena, and Sylvie from Loki. My previous flock had Wanda and Natasha. So
Winter Soldier is your comfort movie, just like I said.
right. And
because Marvel Universe is a thing in Ariel.
Right. Because the Marvel Universe is one of my hobbies. So I went with Steve Rogers because it is too soon for me to use the name Clucky Barnes, which was the name of our previous rooster, who became lunch for a hawk. It would have been hilarious if if he was lunch from a falcon, but but unfortunately it was a hawk.
This is so demented.
And this all happened. This rooster showed up like after my son and I had left, for work and school. And so when I picked him up, I was like, "Hey, I've got a surprise for you." And we get home and I bring him out on the deck and he's like,
"What? Yeah.
What?" And I'm like, "You asked for a rooster and the universe delivered."
Right.
He's like, "What?" Like, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
My gem is not nearly as cool as yours. We've talked about this already. I got a new washer and dryer.
Yeah.
They are the future, as my son pointed out. They are beautiful. I love them. I'm not cleaning out the dryer. I learned 2 things. One, I really need the light on in the dryer. Like there's a light in there, and if the light isn't on for whatever reason, all of a sudden it becomes really difficult for me to do the laundry, like pull the clothes out. I don't know. It's like it shouldn't be that hard. Like I can still see in there, but I just need it. So I learned how to turn the light on, and I was very proud of myself. I had one of those "I am the smartest man alive" moments, which I posted on Instagram because I really legitimately had that. The other thing is, I am learning that I'm very anal about the state of this new appliance in my house. I want it to stay as pristine as possible. Well, that's really difficult when you have a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day I found a little boy Band-Aid stuck to the drum of my dryer. And I turned the light on to get the rest of the clothes out. And I fold in the laundry room. Like I take out a piece of clothing, fold it, put it in the basket, take out another piece. That's why I need the light on, right? Because I'm not the person who just like grabs the whole pile and brings it into the living room. Although I have done that and I see a great value in that. It's just not how I do it.
Yeah.
And when I turned that light on and I saw that Band-Aid on the bottom of my dryer, I was in the house by myself. Thank goodness. I screamed all of the obscenities. Why is there a old Band-Aid on the drum of my dryer? I was so angry.
And I was like, go through the wash?
It must have. Like, I don't understand but I don't know where it was because I didn't see it on any of the clothes.
Right.
So either someone was very intentional, opened up the Band-Aid and stuck it to the inside of my dryer, which I highly doubt happened, or it somehow was like in the clothing, but it was opened up like a perfect, it looked like someone had opened up a Band-Aid and stuck it on the inside. It was flat. Wow. It wasn't like flopping. It was just like perfectly there. Oh, I was so mad. Like, this is disgusting. I knew that. So, and then of course I was like, now I have to clean it. So I got a Lysol wipe and cleaned that part of the dryer and probably should have cleaned the whole dryer because I was so angry about it. Only a parent can find that Pokemon Band-Aid on the inside of their dryer. It was so gross. Anyway, we've done it. We've done another episode. Yay. It's a Hobbies for self-care episode. So Jenny would tell you to make good choices, what are you going to say? Hi, Steve Rogers. We're going to go. You guys make time for your hobbies, okay?
Get a
Bye.
hobby. Go touch some grass.
There you go. Bye.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to the CK and GK podcast. Find us at CK and GK podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or anywhere else that you pod. See you next time.